You are 18 years old, sitting in the cab of a delivery truck outside a dairy in Cedar Falls, Iowa, when your mother waves the newspaper at you from the porch. It is March 1944. The last of the winter ice is dripping off the barn roof in slow, fat drops. Your kid brother is chasing the dog across the yard. A girl named Alice has agreed to marry you once you save enough for a proper start, and the two of you have already picked the corner where the house will go. Your plans are small. Buy 40 acres from Old Man Whitcomb. Fix the truck's clutch. Grow old exactly here. Nothing dangerous. Nothing you cannot picture. Then you see it is not the newspaper in her hand. It is a letter. Your father comes out of the barn wiping his hands, and he goes still the second he sees the envelope, because he remembers what the same paper meant to the boys he grew up with. Your mother does not cry. Alice does. She finds you that evening by the fence line and grips the front of your shirt like the wind might take you if she lets go. The letter gives you 2 weeks. 2 weeks before you stop belonging to yourself. On the day the bus comes, Alice pushes something into your hand. It is a small pocket mirror in a brass case, the kind she keeps in her purse. She has scratched something into the back with a pin. 4 words. Look, then come back. You ask what it means. She says when you're scared, open it, look at your own face, and remember there's a whole life behind it waiting. You laugh so you won't do the other thing. You put the mirror in your breast pocket. It will ride there through boot camp, across the Atlantic, into a steel boat, and onto a strip of sand where nearly everything else you own gets swallowed by the sea. They send you to Texas. They shave your head, take your clothes, hand you a serial number, and drill the thinking clean out of you until obeying comes before feeling. You march until your heels split. You field strip a rifle blindfolded. You crawl under live rounds while a sergeant screams that the bullets are real, so your body will learn what your mind keeps arguing with. At night, the barracks fills with men describing the food back home like they're describing heaven. That is where you meet Frank Delgado from El Paso. His family runs a diner, and he can ruin any mess hall tray just by telling you what he'd be eating instead. Eggs with green chile, tortillas straight off the comal, coffee thick enough to stand a spoon in. Frank wears his grandfather's rosary around his neck. He isn't especially religious. He just runs the beads through his fingers when the quiet gets too loud. There is also Corporal Hensley. He is 26 and looks 50. He was at Kasserine, and he was at Salerno, and he never once shouts. He tells you the loudmouths are the ones who lock up when it starts. Watch the calm ones, he says. Then he tips his head at Frank, who is mid-story about tamales, and says, "That one won't shut up, but he'll hold." Frank beams. You trust Hensley, because he talks like a man who's already read the last page. Months later, you cross the ocean in a ship so packed the men sleep in rotating shifts. Below deck the air is a soup of diesel and sickness. Somewhere out there are the U-boats, and every time the engines shift pitch, every conversation dies at once. You picture the hull splitting, and the cold rushing in before your feet find the stairs. Nothing happens the whole crossing. Somehow that's worse. Fear with no door to leave through. You land in England, under a low grey ceiling of cloud. The villages look like postcards. Kids run beside your truck. Old women pour tea into the hands of strangers. The countryside fills up with men, fuel, shells, tanks, boats, and rumor. France sits just past the water, close enough to taste, and impossible to name out loud. You train for an invasion nobody's allowed to admit is coming. You climb down cargo nets into pitching boats. You storm fake beaches under blank fire. Officers show you clay models of a coastline, pointing at bunkers, wire, mines, and the fields beyond, and on the model every obstacle has a tidy arrow drawn straight through it. Frank leans in and murmurs, "Somebody ought to show the Germans those arrows." You nearly lose it in the briefing. Hensley doesn't crack. On June 5th, 1944, rain hammers the tents, and the wind bows the canvas. Word comes that the invasion is pushed back. A few men cheer. The rest fake it. By nightfall, the word flips. You're going. Chaplains work through the camp. Officers pass out ammunition, seasickness pills, extra rations, last instructions. Men scratch out letters they may never mail. You write your folks, then Alice. You tell her the weather's rotten. You tell her England is pretty. You do not tell her where you're headed. You do not tell her your hand won't stop trembling. At the bottom you write, "Still got the mirror." Then you fold it away with the rest. You board before midnight. The whole Black Sea is moving with ships you can't see. Just shapes and hooded lights. The water heaves. Men vomit over the rail. Frank's beads click without stopping until Hensley reaches over and closes his hand around them. "You'll snap the string before Jerry gets a shot," he says. Frank asks for them back. Hensley says he'll hand them over when they reach France. That becomes the deal. Small, silly, holy. At first light, you climb down a net into a landing craft that drops into the swell and slams the hull. 30 men jam inside. Water sluices over the gunnels. Your rifle is wrapped against the spray. Your pack holds ammunition, grenades, rations, a gas mask, a folding shovel, and everything the army swears you'll need to live. It's heavy enough to kill you. The boat swings toward Omaha Beach. France is just a dark smear. Then it sharpens. Sand, cliffs, smoke, fire. Boats drift sideways with no one steering. One is burning in the shallows. Another simply vanishes in a wall of black water. Naval shells scream overhead like freight trains tearing the sky in half. The officer yells 1 minute. Frank is next to you, gone grey from seasickness, muttering that he's done with the ocean for life. Hensley stands behind him with the rosary in one fist and his rifle in the other. Then machine gun rounds rake the ramp, sharp and metallic, and every man ducks, though there's nowhere to duck to. 30 seconds. You slide 2 fingers into your pocket and touch the brass mirror. Look, then come back. For 1 second, you're at the fence line in Iowa. Then the hull grinds into the bottom. The ramp drops. The first 2 men die before they clear it. Everyone moves at once. You go over the side, because the ramp has become a doorway packed with bullets. The water is deeper than they said. It hits your chest, then your chin. The pack hauls you down. Your boots grope for a floor that isn't there. A wave rolls you sideways. You swallow the sea. All around you men are sinking, because they can't shed their gear fast enough. You claw the straps loose, kick, and finally your hand finds sand. Your rifle's soaked. Your chest is on fire. Frank surfaces a few yards off, thrashing through the surf. Hensley is nowhere. Bullets stitch white lines across the water. You move toward the beach 1 step at a time, because running is not possible. Steel obstacles rise out of the tide, strung with wire and mines, and men cram behind them because even lousy cover beats open sand. A soldier beside you loses his helmet and reaches for it. A round finds him before his fingers touch the surf. You keep moving. That's the beach's first lesson. Stop for a man, and you may go down with him. You throw yourself behind a steel beam. Frank lands next to you, breathing too hard to speak. On the far side, a wounded man is calling for his mother. You look for a medic. There is no medic. No officer. No unit. The beach has taken every plan and shredded it. Men from a dozen companies are tangled together. Radios are dead. Tanks burn in the shallows. Engineers haul explosives toward the wire, while guns fire down from the heights. The bombardment was supposed to flatten the defenses. It didn't. The Germans are still up there, and they can see all of it. Frank asks where Hensley is. You say farther down the beach, probably. Neither of you believes it. You run. 10 steps. Drop. 10 more. Sand kicks up around your boots. A round cracks past your ear, so close the sound hurts. You reach a shell crater, already holding 3 men. One's alive but can't move his legs. One keeps saying the same thing over and over. I lost my rifle. I lost my rifle. The third is dead. Frank tries to drag the legless man deeper in. The man screams. Machine gun fire soars across the lip of the crater. You shout that you have to go. Frank looks at you like you've said something unforgivable. Then a shell lands close and makes the choice for both of you. At the low seawall, dozens of men press into the only cover there is. Some fire uphill at nothing. Some stare at nothing. Some claw at the stones with bare hands. Staying feels safe for a minute, which is exactly what makes it deadly. The artillery is finding the range. An officer crawls the line, yelling that the beach is only the start, and if nobody goes inland, everybody dies right here. Engineers blow a gap in the wire and shower you with dirt. When the first team goes down, a second moves up. You watch a man keep cutting wire, with blood pouring down his sleeve. Courage doesn't look like the recruiting posters. It looks like a terrified person finishing a job because nobody else will. You and Frank crawl through the gap. The slope beyond is steep, the grass hiding holes and wire and mines. Little folds in the ground buy you a few feet at a time. Halfway up you find Hensley behind a low bank of earth, and for 1 second the relief is so huge you almost laugh. Then you see the dark stain under him. A fragment went in below his ribs. He's still awake. He's still holding Frank's rosary. Frank drops beside him. Hensley tries to talk and coughs instead. He presses the beads into Frank's hands. "Told you," he says. "France." Frank takes them in both hands. You push a dressing against the wound. He tells you to quit wasting it. You tell him medics are coming. He looks at you with the tired patience of a man listening to a child lie badly. Then he points up the hill, where the guns are still working and men are still dying on the sand. "Go," he says. Frank won't. Hensley grabs his sleeve with a strength he shouldn't have left. "Go," you leave him there. For the rest of your life, you will remember the exact feeling of Frank's arm in your grip as you haul him away. Not the blood, not the noise, the resistance. Frank fighting you because part of him still thinks loyalty means never leaving anyone. The war teaches him different in under 10 seconds. You climb. Near the crest, German voices drift up through the grass. You pitch a grenade into a trench and hear a scream. Frank fires at a shape moving in the smoke. You drop into the position and find a German boy younger than you, hands shaking too hard to reload. He looks up. For 1 second, neither of you moves. He has freckles, mud on his jaw, a snapshot tucked under his helmet strap. Then Frank fires, and the boy folds. Frank stares. "He was going for the rifle," he says. "I know," you say. "You don't know. There's no time to decide what happened. The trench keeps going. The beach below is still full of men. You work bunker to bunker, firing, shouting, throwing grenades, doing things that will come back to you in pieces every time you try to sleep. By afternoon, the ground is yours. By dusk, the Americans hold a thin ribbon of France. The invasion has survived. Nobody says the word victory. They ask for water, ammunition, morphine, the names of the missing. Hensley is never found alive. The next morning, Frank runs the rosary through his fingers and notices something he's never looked at. A tiny word scratched into the crucifix with a pin. Hensley must have done it aboard the ship. "Climb." Frank laughs once, then he cries, quietly. He tucks the beads inside his shirt. You thought reaching France was the hard part. Inland Normandy shows you how wrong you were. The hedgerows, walls of packed earth and root and brush around every field, turn each pasture into a trap. Machine guns wait in the gaps. Snipers fire once and disappear. Mortars fall from spotters you'll never see. On the beach, the danger was in front of you. Here it's on every side. Your squad gets replacements, including 16-year-old Denny Vaughn, who lied about his age and won't stop talking about the medals he's going to win. Frank hands him half a chocolate bar and jokes that medals don't stop bullets. Denny laughs. 3 days later, he trips a mine. The blast throws him into the brush. He lives, but the leg doesn't. As they carry him off, he keeps apologizing for losing his rifle, and you hear the man from the beach crater all over again in a younger voice. The days settle into a rhythm. Walk, stop, listen, cross, dig, ride out the shelling, move again. You sleep in wet wool. You eat cold meat out of a can. You keep your boots laced, because an attack can come any second. You learn the weapons by ear. The German gun ripping the air like torn canvas. The cough of a mortar. The falling whistle of artillery that presses every man flat into the dirt. At first, the bodies stop you cold. Later, you eat lunch beside them, because there's nowhere else to sit. And getting used to that scares you more than the bodies do. You write to Alice with every true sentence removed. France is green. The food's bad. Still got your mirror. You don't tell her the glass is cracked, or that the case is dark with something you can't scrub off, and won't name. Frank changes slower. He still talks about his grandfather's diner. He still shares his rations. Before every attack, he touches the scratched word. Climb. It becomes an order, a prayer, and an excuse all at once. In July, they send your platoon into a village that intelligence says holds Germans. The streets look empty. A curtain twitches. A dog barks somewhere. An old man stands in a doorway with both hands raised. Your lieutenant waves the squad in. A shot cracks. He drops. Everyone opens fire. Windows shatter. Rounds punch through doors. Frank drags you behind a stone wall while someone lobs a grenade into the house the shot may have come from. After the blast, you go in. There's no German. A woman lies on the floor. A small boy watches you from under a table, silent. Nobody knows where the first shot came from. Outside, the old man is still standing with his hands up. That night, Frank doesn't talk about the diner. He turns the beads over, reads the word, and asks, "Climb to what?" You have no answer. The war climbs anyway. Weeks later, the army breaks out of Normandy. The roads fill with trucks, tanks, prisoners, refugees, dead horses, burned-out cars. French civilians line the ditches cheering. Kids beg for chocolate. Women lay flowers across the tanks. A girl about Alice's age kisses your cheek, and for a moment the whole thing feels like the clean story they promised you. Then you pass a family digging through a house that Allied bombs brought down, and you understand that the cheering and the grief are living on the same street. Outside Saint-Lô, Frank dies with no charge and no last stand. He is sitting in a ditch next to you, prying open a tin of meat, when one shell lands behind the hedge. You come to several feet away with dirt in your teeth and a scream in your ears. Frank is barely there. The rosary lies in the mud beside him. You crawl to him. He can't feel his legs. He asks you to describe Alice. So you tell him about the fence line, the pocket mirror, the way she laughs before she finishes the joke, the 40 acres, the corner where the house was going to go. Eyes shut. Frank says, "My grandfather starts the coffee at 5. You can smell it down the block. You promise he'll smell it again." He smiles, because he knows you're lying. His hand finds the beads and pushes them toward you. Don't let him go dark. You never learn if he means his grandfather, or Hensley, or himself. Then he's gone. From that day you carry the rosary. Alice's mirror stays over your heart. 2 men, 2 promises. One belongs to the life you meant to have, the other belongs to the men who don't get one anymore. Paris falls, autumn comes on, Alice's words start to press on you. Look, then come back. The leaves go gold, then rust, then bare while you keep pushing east. Everyone says Germany's finished, home by Christmas. Winter comes. The fighting doesn't stop. You quit trusting rumors and dates. Home only exists inside letters now. Germany surrenders in May 1945. You are 19, and you feel older than your father looked the day the letter came. Men fire their rifles at the sky and go looking for something to drink. You sit alone against a broken wall and run the beads through your fingers. Your thumb has nearly rubbed Hensley's words smooth. Climb. For a year it kept you breathing. Now there's nothing left to climb. You come home to Iowa in the fall of 1945, after the leaves have turned 3 times. Your mother sobs at the depot. Your father just grips your shoulder, because he's fluent in silence. Alice looks exactly like her photograph and nothing like it at all. She runs into your arms and you feel relief and love and grief and fear, but all of it arrives through a pane of glass. Everyone expects the old you to step off that train. You try to play him. You smile and hand out the safe stories. The crossing was rough. France was pretty. Frank was a good man. You don't mention Hensley on the hill, the boy in the trench, the child under the table, or Frank in the ditch. Alice asks why you carry a rosary when you never pray. It belonged to a friend, you say. That's all you can get out. At the dairy, the same loading dock, the same routes, the same men complaining about the same prices. Ordinary life went right on without asking your permission. You're supposed to be grateful, but the sameness feels like an accusation. A truck backfires, and you wake up under the kitchen table. Rain on the window turns into rounds off the ramp. Alice learns not to reach for you fast. You buy the ring and leave it in a drawer for half a year. Your old future is still sitting there, unlocked, and you no longer remember how to walk into it. One evening, Alice finds you out behind the barn, holding the beads. She asks about the word. So you tell her, about Frank, about Hensley, about the beach. Not all of it, never all of it, but enough. She listens and never once tells you to put it behind you. Then she folds your fingers closed around the rosary. Then climb, she says, just not by yourself. You marry that winter. Years go by. You take over the dairy, then buy Whitcomb's 40 acres after all. You have a daughter, then a son. The rosary lives in the top drawer of your desk. The mirror's glass stays cracked. The scratches stay sharp. Your kids know you were in the war, but to them it's a chapter. Normandy is a name. Omaha is grey footage on the television. They know the Allies won, and you came home. They don't know that when the ramp fell there was no ending. Only deep water, heavy packs, and scared men lined up behind you. You weren't brave. Neither were Hensley or Frank. You moved, because staying meant dying, and then you kept moving, because the men beside you needed you to. When it was over, you found that moving was easier than standing still. At 66, you go back to Normandy with Alice. The beach is quiet now. Families walk along the tide line. Children play where men drowned under their own gear. Grass has healed over the bluffs, and the bunkers are hollow and cold. Near the place the ramp came down, you take out the cracked mirror and the worn rosary. On the crucifix, Hensley's word is still there. Climb. And for the first time you understand it was never only about the hill. It was an order to carry them up with you. All of them. Out of the sand, into whatever came next. You close your hand around the beads and press them into the dirt for a moment. Then you take Alice's hand. The sea moves exactly the way it moved that morning, but nobody is pushing you now. This time you pick the direction, and you turn your back on the water and walk.